Audio Athorax here, hope you're keeping good, and today we're going to be talking about Maelstrom and its two variations, Armageddon and Hidden Technique. Now, just keep in mind that what we're about to show you is going to be pretty much a showcase of the build's capability and utility rather than damage capabilities. The damage can go even way further, so with extreme and good min-maxing and further values, yeah, it can probably do pit 130, 135, potentially even more. So yeah, feel free to have a look first at the hidden technique and how it performs. Takes a bit of time to amp up, but once you get it going, it's essentially juggling between Mighty Throw and Iron Maelstrom, and it is madness. Currently we're doing just a little bit of a 4 trillion, which, not too bad, but we can definitely get further more with further optimization. It can probably be doing 30 trillions and stuff like that. So yeah, this is pretty much it. The ability to essentially whip enemies all the time and just create some good old AoE with Mighty Throw. So when it comes to the skill tree, we have chosen the usual 3 shells, starting with Rallying Cry. We gain some 45 from it, so it's pretty decent. Of course, a little bit more movement speeds and resource generation, and we also really need Rallying Cry because it spends Fury, and I'll get to why we actually need that in a bit. But essentially, it's just a necessary option here for a few purposes. Next up we got with Iron Skin. Iron Skin is pretty decent, makes you unstoppable, at the same time gives you a barrier and a decent amount of mobility as well on top of that. And of course Resolve stacks, so we can kind of stack up on Resolve to get that crazy Glint's Anvil aspect running. Next up we go with Challenging Shout, pretty standard, weakening enemies, a little bit more damage reduction, a little bit more damage to the first 5 enemies. Warcry, pretty important with Warcry to go with the vulnerable option, so we essentially make everything vulnerable and just a little bit more damage. Then we go with Mighty Throw itself. We have a very good option here to generate barrier, a little bit more attack speed, so we can go up to 4 stacks of ferocity, so that's 20% attack speed. And of course we go for this variation with Mightiest as an option, so it's an ultimate skill. And essentially because it's an ultimate skill, with certain aspect we're going to be able to essentially juggle and reset both the cooldown of Mighty Throw and Iron Maelstrom. They will reset each other's cooldown, essentially, as you probably have seen in the showcase. So yeah, when it comes to Iron Maelstrom, we're going with a bludgeoning weapon, so we go with the a little bit more damage, and of course the hidden technique. Now you could go with Mastered Weapon. Mastered Weapon is pretty much the same rotation, but it makes the rotation a little bit more smoother. Once you cast one of them, such as Mighty Throw, you can only cast Iron Maelstrom next, so it's a very smooth follow-up and you can't get anything wrong. With Hidden Technique we do a little bit more damage, 75% more multiplicative damage, but there is the room for things to go messed up. You could cast sometimes 2 Iron Maelstroms. It entirely depends on your kind of touch. Otherwise, when it comes to cooldowns, the build needs a little bit of cooldowns, but is able to pretty much reset up those 3 stacks more or less almost all the time. So yeah, this is pretty much the skill tree. Now when it comes to the gear of this variation, good old Air of Perdition with maximum resolve stacks, a little bit more multiplicative damage and more crit. Next up we got Glint's Anvil, legendary chest. Now keep in mind that the ground stomp here should be maximum resource for the build, so I'm gonna leave a link in the build description, and there you're gonna see all the proper values. This is just pretty much for showcase purposes at this point, but we should still be having Glint's Anvil and pretty much most of the values here apart from the ground stomp. When it comes to the gloves here, we pretty much have a very nice pair of gloves, very lucky, but you do want a little bit of cooldown reduction on this build, not too much, but some of it. So yeah, just more damage and crushing aspect. Next up we got Deep Bolts, pretty amazing, pretty decent, more multiplicative damage and just those 50% primary resource regeneration, very good because they allow us to pretty much benefit a lot from Ramaladni's Magnum Opus, which is of course we're using it in this build as well. And we currently don't have more Fury, but we can reach up to like about 250 Fury, even potentially more, so the damage values can go and skyrocket. Now next up we got Duelist. Duelist is pretty important since we're using the Secheron set and we need a lot of attack speed to be able to make up for the loss. So yeah, pretty standard. We got here Warpath, pretty decent on our mace. Ideally, a gem should be physical damage. Again, we are pretty much not doing any other types of damage but physical with this build, so keep that in mind as well. Moving on, we got the Grandfather, pretty standard choice. Again, very lucky with the ultimate skills here and stuff like that, but ideally, even if you don't have it, it's a pretty standard and pretty good multiplier. And also, if you're not running Selic, having a Grandfather with a lot of HP is a very good thing for general survival purposes. Next up, we go with Tidal aspect on the ring. Keep in mind that the cooldown reduction here is a little bit too much. We don't need that much. We could definitely strip the 16% and just the whole stat and put up some damage affixes, but that's what we got so far. Now, next up, this is a very good example of a ring that you might want to have on yourself, and this ring is pretty much exactly what we want to have when it comes to affixes and stuff like that. And of course, Apogeic Furor. This is your bread and butter essentially for the build. Without Apogeic Furor, you're not going to be able to do the combo, so essentially every time casting an ultimate skill reduces the cooldowns of your other skills. Interestingly enough, we always have uptime of shouts, so essentially the only reason why we truly need cooldown reduction is for the Maelstrom charges here. Like, you don't want them to run out. Essentially, if you have 0 cooldown reduction all over your gear, they're going to run out and you're going to be in a bad position. So you need just a little bit, but not too much. We should be having somewhere at about 30% cooldown reduction. We have made an overkill here with the cooldown reduction due to whatever gear we have available at the moment for us, for the builds and other purposes. But ideally, yeah, that's pretty much the value. Anything below, you're gonna start running out of Iron Maelstrom charges. Anything above, way too much, and it's just a waste of damage essentially. So I hope this kind of makes sense. Moving on, last but not least, we have Banished Lord. Banished Lord is just insanely good for multiple reasons, like the multiplicative damage itself, being able to get more damage from the overpower stacks and stuff like that is just crazy. But yeah, Apogeic Fury is just able to provide us with a perfect uptime on everything here, so we never essentially run out of cooldowns, and it's pretty good. That's why we're able to use Warcry as a way to provide vulnerable to the enemies as well. So yeah, this is pretty much it. When it comes to the runes, UN2 gives you just a great control over the field and freezes everything. You could choose to go with something else for more damage, or potentially other options, but I found crowd control to be a very good option in general, especially on hardcore. Now, when it comes to the Paragon Boards, we have ourselves here a Dominate Glyph. As we've seen, it's just crazy values of damage per overpower stacks. If we have 8 overpower stacks, so everything goes times 8 additively, and it's just a decent amount of multiplicative damage. And yeah, pretty decent. Moving on, we got Bonebreaker. Bonebreaker is absolutely awesome. Just gives you more multiplicative damage, and it's pretty decent altogether. Next up, we got Marshal. Marshal just essentially reduces the cooldowns over some of our charges over here on yeah, on the bolt, and essentially on the Iron Maelstrom itself, and essentially it gives us more damage per overpower stack, which essentially we want that again because that stacks up times 8. And yeah, it's pretty good. You could go with 12 stacks of overpower, but the truth is you start losing multiplicative damage. If I were to put Tidal on this weapon over here, it would essentially, yeah, give me more additive damage, but I will lose a decent portion. I will lose about 50% of the damage, or even more from Warpath. So essentially, yeah, it's kind of not worth over investing into it. We'll gain another extra amount of 72% multiplicative damage, but when you subtract 72 out of 120, you still lose 50, and that additive damage which we get from the overpower stacks doesn't appear to be able to cover it up. So essentially that's why we've gone with a Tidal aspect on here. Moving on the Paragon Boards, we are going with Carnage. Carnage is very good because of its 15% attack speed, and we have chosen Challenger, so extra strength all over the place, so we can benefit even furthermore from damage and stuff like that. A little bit more max life all over the place, a little bit more crit as well. So overall decent bolt. Next up we go with Decimator, pretty important bolt, a lot of HP, and at the same time over here we go with Might, and Might also boosts the damage of the overpower stacks here, so it's absolutely very important to have. As you can see, we haven't maxed up the glyphs here, but you can imagine what happens when we get everything to like 120, 130 and stuff like that. So yeah, next up, moving on, we got Flawless Technique, a little bit more crit, a little bit more damage, and last but not least we go with Wrath, so just essentially a bit more additive and multiplicative damage. And of course, Flawless Technique gives us attack speed on top, so it's pretty decent altogether. Now when it comes to Expertise, we have gone with 200 Expertise. Now Pole Arm is a little bit stronger, but this one gives us more critical strike chance, so essentially we've tried to cover up the values from everywhere we can get our hands on. Of course, if we use, say, an axe as a weapon, when it comes to the Expertise, that axe potentially gives us a little bit more attack speed. So we've managed to reach to about 80% attack speed through various options and stuff like that by just essentially stacking up values. And then of course Duelist brings us up to like 120, 130 and all these things. But the thing is, we need that much value because of Secheron. So just to kind of showcase you, this is the sets that we're using. We're using Secheron. Secheron is pretty decent, but of course we lose 50% attack speed. Now when it comes to combining it with Crucible, we gain 20% more cast speed. So essentially at this point the real loss is only 30% of attack speed between this combo of sets. Secheron is crazy, more max life, more fury, crazy damage and stuff like that. As long as we're able to hit enough attack speed, which we do, we pretty much are doing okay with 70% attack speed thanks to Crucible, which gives us a little bit more damage and a little bit more damage reduction, but most importantly the attack speed. So when we actually go and start hitting something, as you can see, we stay at 70% attack speed, which is a decent value, and yeah, Secheron essentially gives us a ton more damage than other combinations of sets. So yeah, of course we're missing a ton of martial skills and things like that, so we could definitely be doing more damage around the place, but all in all, a very decent and fun build. A little bit clunky, I would say, although we have a decent amount of survival with barriers and stuff like that, and yeah, just a decent fun thing to play if you're looking for something a little bit different. Now the other option is Armageddon. Armageddon is pretty awesome. We're gonna try and show you absolutely everything. Now for the purposes of this showcase, we are missing some pieces, but at the same time everything which is going to be with the correct values and things will be left in the video description of this of this build, so you can pretty much check out everything over there. So how does Armageddon function? Armageddon is pretty much the good old school build of Iron Maelstrom, and it's relying heavily on cooldown reduction. So essentially this is how it's going to look like. As you can see, we're spawning a ton of dummies around all over the place, like hammers coming up from Mighty Troll, and it's pretty awesome. It's, yeah, the build is like literally everything all over the place. Explosions, Dust Devils, Iron Maelstrom, Mighty Troll, just you name it, we have it. It's just crazy. Now when it comes to damage, as you can see, it's not exactly as impressive as, for instance, Hidden Technique, but as you can see, quite a big amount of instances of damage. Of course, we can bring up the values to higher numbers, but that will require more min-maxing. Now, when it comes to the skill tree, we have gone again with Rallying Cry, pretty decent for fortification, movement speed, resource generation, and just a general decent ability of utility. When it comes to Iron Skin, again, Iron Skin, Unstoppable, pretty much more or less the same kind of options when it comes to compared to the previous build. So yeah, this is it. Same goes for Warcry, just a little bit more damage, a little bit more vulnerable, and yeah. Now when it comes to Mighty Troll, we have changed things around a little bit. We still gain Ferocity, we still gain the Barrier, but this time Mighty Troll hurls two weapons. which are spares, and the reason for that is we pretty much are using another set, which I'll get into in a little bit later. But yeah, at this point we have the good old Iron Maelstrom with, yeah, again, bludgeoning and all these kind of special effects, and we have the Armageddon here, which gives us a ton of AoE damage. So very flashy, very cool, but at the same time a little bit more brute force damage, and that might be a struggle for higher pits, because if monsters are dying less quickly because of the less damage and more instances of damage, then you might be fighting more, then there might be more strain on the defense. So yeah, it's not a bad thing per se, but definitely have to be a little bit more careful. Now when it comes to the gear itself, again, Air of Perdition, Serum Vex for more damage. Again, we have to have maximum resource, Glynn's Anvil. This time around we're going with full cooldown reduction on the gloves. Very important to have as much cooldown reduction as you can get your hands on. The bolts as well, pretty much more damage. This time around we're using Earth Striker. Very important to use Earth Striker so we can keep on gaining overpower stacks every time we swap weapons, and we're swapping weapons like crazy with this build. So yeah, and a little bit more damage, of course. When it comes to conceited, yeah, essentially we are going with barrier damage, because we are pretty much having barrier all the time because of Iron Skin and other things. But yeah, this is pretty much the little bit of a difference. Vehement over here, we don't really need to use Duelist, which is a good thing, so it will boost damage a little bit more. But essentially, yeah, just we have enough attack speed at this point. Romoladny as usual, gain as much multiplicative damage as we can. Obviously it's going to be less without Secheron, since we're not using Secheron for this build, but it will still be able to probably reach 200 maximum fury, if not even a bit more. Then again, Grandfather, nothing too exciting here. Edge Master with a little bit more attack speed and definitely cooldown. So all of these cooldowns have to be actually GAs and masterworked, so we are actually missing a little bit on cooldown. But the name of the game is reach 10 seconds of cooldown on Iron Maelstrom. If you have 10, then by having 3 weapon swaps you remove 6 seconds, and by having these 2 shouts combined with Martial, you're able to remove another 4 seconds, and essentially you're able to kind of rotate everything more or less flawlessly. Now, we should not be using Emblem of Stallbreak, but sadly I do not have an Unbroken Chain, which has cooldown reduction on it. Unbroken Chain is going to improve our damage by a ton, and this is truly the item we're going to be needing and using in the long run. As long as we have enough cooldown reduction, this is the best in slot for this build. So yeah, this is pretty much the gear and the stats. When it comes to Paragon, nothing too much changes here as well. At this point we still have Dominate, get as much damage from overpower stacks, additively and multiplicatively, and then of course Bonebreaker combines with Martial, very necessary to have Martial here. Challenger with Carnage, again more attack speed and more options for critical strike and just more max life all over the place. Decimator, pretty much everything remains the same, with mites and more damage per overpower stacks around here. And yeah, we also have Flawless Technique, of course, more crit, more damage, more max life, and Wrath in the end. So this is it. The only thing that truly changes it would be the sets. So this time we're actually using the Aria set, and essentially by swapping weapons we gain 80% more multiplicative damage. We gain the barrier, so it's pretty decent to actually keep on maintaining barrier even without Iron Skin. And of course we have swapping weapons grants 40% increased damage, and also triggers an equipped non-ultimate weapon mastery skill. So at this point we're able to go with Mighty Troll, and as you can see, Mighty Troll just goes all over the place and is pretty decent. Yeah, of course there are other options, but at this point Mighty Troll seems to be the best option so far, and we're able to trigger it just naturally by having it equipped on our skill bar. And yeah, it's just good fun. The build is absolutely good fun. As long as we keep on having a barrier, we keep on doing damage, and yeah, it's just quite enjoyable. If anything else, definitely flashy and enjoyable and fun to play. I believe we can still reach pit 130 with this build, with extreme min-maxing and stuff like that, and it should be something which should be possible. So yeah, these are pretty much the variations. Now, the only thing I like to say is like we're using Darkstalker Amulet here. So we get 60%, we should be getting 60% multiplicative damage, right? And we should be essentially getting 25% more attack speed. So that's pretty much one of the reasons why we're using Darkstalker, is just to be able to hit those values. You could use the Scale of Yorids the Mighty for a bit more cooldown reduction and, you know, play around with things. So there are a few options, but this is pretty much one of the easier ways to kind of increase attack speed and gain a decent amount of damage. Of course, when it comes to the seal, we should be having a legendary seal at this point. There's no need to have the mythic seal, but having any decent values for damage would definitely help out to push that pit 130 or even further. So yeah, when it comes to the mercs, good over here in Subu, nothing too exciting as usually. We go with you know, Inspiration and Bastion and just a little bit more resources, and of course in general we just go with more critical strike damage from Subu with Cover Fire. And yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. Feel free to leave a thumbs up if that is something that you liked, and yeah, we'll definitely see each other soon. Cheers.